Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Andy. I hope you're doing really well wherever or whenever in the world that you are. I am recovering from a bit of a head cold from the last week. I know I still sound a little congested and you know, the like. So I apologize if the audio, doesn't sound great. I am feeling much better. I'm sounding much better than I did this time last week. So we're gonna carry on. This is also the first time that I'm filming at night because, it gets dark at like 4:15 and I'm filming after work today. So, it's a little bit of a different, warmer lighting situation here. So we're gonna roll with it. Anyways, today I'm filming my November wrap up. So we're gonna talk about all the books that I read during November. And all I'm gonna say is I read a lot this month. Part of it is I had some time off from work over the holidays, which was great because what else would I do during the day other than read and listen to my audiobooks? That's the best self-care a girl could ask for. And I kind of fell into some series that I binged back to back, which was really fun. Yeah, I think overall I had a great time reading this month. We're gonna go through all the books that I read in November. I believe there were 16 books that I got to in November. I think I had one DNF. Leave in the comments down below, how was your reading month? Did you read anything festive and holiday-y? Did you read anything that pleasantly surprised you? Any total misses? I'd love to know, so leave those comments down below. All right, to the books. I think that's all the housekeeping things that I had, so let's not dilly-dally, let's jump into it. I ended October reading the first book of the Black Witch Chronicles series. If you want to hear my thoughts on like that first book and get a little more information on what the premise is of that book, go ahead, watch the last few minutes of my October wrap up. But anyways, I enjoyed that first book, The Black Witch, so much that I immediately continued on and read all of the remaining books that are currently published in the series. So I read book 2, which was The Iron Flower. So I'm just looking down at my notes. I read book 2, which was The Iron Flower, book 3, which was The Shadow Wand, and then book 4, which is The Demon Tide. I think there's tentative plans for book 5 to come out in 2023, but there's no formal release date or cover. So we'll see about that. This series, in my opinion, is excellent. It is such a fun time. I think the third book might have been my favorite, but I really enjoyed them all. You're basically following the main character, Elloren, I think that is how you say her name, as she ventures off to college. She meets all these diverse people, races, creatures, and with a merry band of misfits, they have to fight this bigger, badder evil that's looming out in the world. Diana is absolutely my favorite character. If you know, you know. I love her. It is just such a fun time. I obviously don't want to say too much about the content of books 2, 3, and 4 because I don't want to spoil anything if you decide to pick it up, which you absolutely should. Yeah, I will say the group takes a lot of L's throughout the series. The end of book 4 had some really interesting new revelations and like new information coming out, but it also leaves off and it's a little bleak. Like, I don't know how they're gonna come out on top. Maybe they won't, I don't know, we'll have to see. So I'm really excited for when I think it'll be the 5th and final book comes out, but overall, loved the series. I had such a blast reading it. I made my sister also pick up the audiobooks because they're free on Hoopla. And we had a great time like chatting back and forth and sharing our predictions and our favorite characters. And yeah, it's a fun series to talk about. And there are a ton of parallels to like society today. Some of it is a bit on the nose, but I think it's really excellent. It's well written. The characters are interesting. There's lots of good dynamics. Love the found family element. Yeah, I mean, it was a great time. I highly recommend. I think I gave every book 4 or 4.5 stars, so I really enjoyed every single book. The next book that I picked up was Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper, I think. This was a witchy, sapphic little rom-com. There was a lot I enjoyed in this. I loved the small town setting. I thought Emmy and Talia had really good chemistry. There were some good steamy scenes going on. I liked this. I gave it 3.5 stars. The very beginning gave me very much like John Tucker Must Die vibes, which was unexpected but really fun. By the end, a little less so. What let me down a little bit in this one was the plot. There's a series of these trials, and I just found them very underwhelming. I wasn't completely bought in or invested. They didn't feel very high stakes to me. So that was a little bit of a letdown, but in general, I had a really fun time listening to this. I listened to the audiobook. I recommended it to my sister because I thought she would like it. Like, I do think it's a fun, Halloween-y time of year read. It wasn't my favorite thing I've ever read, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. The next book that I read was The Roughest Draft by that like writing romantic duo. I can't remember their names, but obviously you can see the cover on the screen. I also really enjoyed this. I gave it, I won't say really enjoyed. I enjoyed it. I gave it a 3.5 stars. I just kind of felt like I'd read this before. You know, it was a second chance, dual timeline kind of story between these two writing partners. And yeah, it was fine. It was enjoyable. I flew through it, but I just kind of felt like I had deja vu the whole time because, like I said, it just felt very familiar. It reminded me of a lot of other second chance dual timeline books that have come out recently. I liked the very bookish atmosphere of this story. I mean, it was fun to get all the writing behind the scenes and publishing kind of stuff. I thought that was really interesting. And I do remember there being a delightful amount of angst, like just right for me. I just wish it had been a little steamier. It left quite a bit to be desired. Like, I felt really, that's all we got from like the smutty scenes. I don't know, I was really underwhelmed by them. All in all, I enjoyed myself. I probably read this in maybe 1 or 2 sittings. And I could definitely see myself picking up other books by this writing duo. Next, I read After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm just gonna come out and say it. This is my least favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid book that I've read. I gave it 3 stars. This is another marriage in trouble, second chance, dual timeline kind of story. I read so many of them this year. There were definitely some things that I liked in this story. There's a plot line of self-discovery with the main female protagonist, Lauren, that I thought was really believable and well-developed. And I really enjoyed the early scenes of watching or reading Lauren, and I think his name was Ryan. Yeah, I think it was Ryan. Originally falling in love, like back in the day. Like that gave it helped me root for them because, man, most of this book was kind of agonizing to read. I really didn't see or understand how they were going to rekindle their romance, come back together, or like reconnect. So I think we really needed those early, butterflies in your stomach. You could just feel how into each other they were at the beginning. So I think it was enjoyable to read, but it was really important for the story because 80% of the time I was like, I don't know if I could ever see them getting back together, or I wasn't even sure if I wanted them to get back together. I just was really disappointed by the end. The plot device that was kind of used that, pushes them back together felt really lazy and undeserved, kind of. I just didn't like it. It didn't feel believable. I feel like I needed so much more time in the present timeline watching them reconnect or like watching them try and resolve their conflict. I don't think this is a spoiler, but basically they're like both secretly reading each other's drafted emails to each other. And so like that's how they resolve a lot of past conflict, which just felt really unsatisfying and unrealistic to me. And I know that all romances don't have to be realistic, but just the amount of angst and tension and just heartache that's in, most of the book, I didn't feel like we had enough reconnection or healing or growth with their relationship to believe that they would get back together and have a happily ever after. Overall, I did not love this. I thought it was okay. It's definitely a page turner. So like if you're in a reading slump and just feel like I need something that will keep me reading or keep me engaged, I think this does it. I mean, I once again, I blazed through this. I think I read it I listened to it in one day, but at the end I was really disappointed. So I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars. Okay, the next book that I read was The Main Event by Shelly Laurenston. And she has a different pen name. So she wrote, oh my God, I'm brain farting. What was that book that I read? G.A. Aiken, The Blacksmith Queen. And I really enjoyed that. I read it in a reading vlog, I think sometime back in September maybe. And I had a really good time. And so one of you all recommended that she, with a different pen name, has all these different romances. And I was like, great, I am gonna jump into one of them. And I think I just didn't select the right series for me. The Main Event, from what I gathered, I only made it about 15% in, but it's sort of really leaning into this like cat pride metaphor or analogy, if you will. And it felt really cheesy and corny, and I just didn't care for it. I didn't love the tone. It was a weird combination of being really raunchy, but also really campy and kind of ridiculous. I don't know, it just like wasn't working for me right in the moment that I was listening to it. Because I had so much fun with the other book that I read by this author, I think I'll give another series a go. I was thinking about, I think there's like a Viking inspired one called Call of Crows maybe. So I might give that series a try. I kind of just impulsively chose the one that was available on Hoopla. And I think I might be a little more selective. Because yeah, I think this author has a really interesting style. I don't want to give up because I really like the other one. So this one wasn't for me, but I don't know. I'd be curious if any of you have read it. Like, let me know down below your thoughts. Or if you've read either series, I guess, let me know. The next book or series that I kind of dove headfirst into and binged completely was An Heir Comes to Rise series by C.C. Peñaranda. I think that's how you say your name. Oh gosh, I forget. It's on the screen so you can see it for reference. And wow, does this series give me Sarah J. Maas vibes. The writing, the character relationships, the world building, like it is so reminiscent of everything Sarah J. Maas writes. So I think if you like Sarah J. Maas, give this series a go because it was a very similar vibe for sure. I think on Goodreads, it's compared to Throne of Glass and the Red Queen series, and I think that's spot on. And the first book is actually narrated by Elizabeth Evans, who also narrates all of the Throne of Glass series, so I think that really made me feel like I was in a Sarah J. Maas book. I really liked the first 2 books of this series. The third book was just okay for me, and I think I want to wait for the 4th book to become available on audio before I listen to it. But this is also a series where the 5th book comes out, I think early in 2023. So hopefully I'll be able to kind of finish out the series sometime next year. Backing up a little bit, I think it's a YA fantasy romance, but actually might just be a fantasy series. And you follow our main character, Faith, and she's kind of this badass fighter who unexpectedly gets involved in all of this court drama and like political scheming. And she really gets into, not trouble, but like she gets into a situation where bad stuff can happen and she gets involved in a lot of plotting and, I don't know, fantasy shit. I think that some of this series or what of it that I've read, some of it was predictable, but there were some curveballs thrown in here and there, which I really didn't see coming. So that, I don't know, it made it fun. It kept me on my toes a little bit. I thought the world building was really interesting. Some of the characters have really interesting magical abilities, so I thought that was cool. Overall, it was like a little bit cheesy and silly, but I had a great time with it. So yeah, I think if you like Sarah J. Maas, give it a go. After that, or kind of during, I was simultaneously reading Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. My sister has been asking me for months and months and months to read it, and I finally did. And it was an excellent recommendation because I loved it. I think I gave it 4 or 4.5 stars. Did I say that it was called Gideon the Ninth? Oh, my sick brain is making me a little foggy. Anyways, despite being confused for 75% of this story, most of the book feels pretty convoluted and odd, but in the end it was worth it because it was such a fun time. The world building and character dynamics were really interesting and unique, and I think Gideon in particular is like the main protagonist kind of, was incredibly amusing. Her character brought so much humor and levity to this really like dark world or space, worlds, whatever you would call it. I thought it was really fun, and I already downloaded the second book from Hoopla, the audiobook. I definitely think this is a series that you should not let too much time pass in between reading because, like I said, there is so much complex detail in the plot, but the world and the characters, and so I have to read it in December because otherwise I'm gonna have to reread Gideon the Ninth to read Heir the Ninth. I think that's the next book. Either way, I'm very excited. Definitely going to continue on. And I can't wait to eventually read Nona the Ninth. Okay, then I took a little bit of a left turn here based on like the mood I was in. And I read Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. Totally different vibe, completely different genre. But overall, I think it was a good decision because I really enjoyed this novel. But I will say it is quite a melancholy story. It really left me feeling sad. Or maybe not like I'm crying sad, but like an empty sad, you know? You're following David as he's kind of navigating relationships and just like adulty things. And yeah, I mean, Baldwin really authentically highlights the struggles of, you know, trying to figure out who you are and who you want to be and who you want to be with in life, and really explores this internalized homophobia as he's trying to deal with his sexuality and, you know, the time period. I mean, it's really interesting. I also weirdly kind of loved all the French that was just like thrown around. I was like, oh, am I bilingual now? Can I fluently speak and understand French? I think so. I guess I'm not sure if I liked this book, but I completely understand its acclaim and it's like prestige, or, you know, I guess it's a classic for a reason. This was my first James Baldwin novel, but I don't think it'll be my last. I could definitely see myself picking up more from him, but I definitely have to make sure I'm in the right headspace if any of his other books are the same tone or mood. The next book that I read, me and my friend Amber from work have talked about starting the, oh gosh, I don't even know what it's called, what series it is, but the first book is Dark Lover by J.R. Ward, because, you know, there's like, I don't know, is there 16 or 30 installments in this series? Something absurd like that. And so I feel like recently we were kind of joking, oh, we should start this. And so I did. And this first book, I mean, I know it was written like 20 years ago, but it felt really dated. There were some things I liked, but overall it was just okay. Here are the things that I liked. There was a lot of nuance and like some new takes with the vampire trope. There was some familiar characteristics, but there was also some new stuff which I really liked and appreciated. I also thought the overall plot was pretty engaging. However, there was a lot of homophobic, transphobic, and like very gender stereotyping language that always drives me a bit nuts in these more dated novels. And I also felt like Beth and Wrath, their romance felt pretty insta-lovey to me. So I didn't totally believe in their chemistry or their romance or their relationship. It just felt so rushed in my opinion. So I didn't believe their everlasting love. I am moderately interested and intrigued by like where this series could go. And obviously books are being published now. And so my hope is that it starts to feel a little more, I don't know, relevant or socially conscious, I guess. I might continue on. I don't know. We'll have to see. If any of you have read through this series, let me know your overall thoughts. Is it worth me reading 30 books in the same series? Can I skip around a little bit? I don't know. Let me know. Wow, as I'm looking at my notes and my list, I read a lot of fantasy paranormal romance this month. I was obviously in a particular mood. What can I say? The next duet series, actually, I think it's a trilogy I listened to, was book 1 is Her Soul to Take, and book 2 was Her Soul for Revenge, maybe. I can't think of the author, but as always, you'll see it wherever I put the thing. And I liked this little series. Like I said, I think it's a trilogy, so I think there's going to be a third book eventually. The first book was such a pleasant surprise. I really had fun listening to it. I was not expecting it to be, I knew that it was steamy because I read a few reviews, but it's one thing to know it versus to know it, you know? Because this book is very steamy and kinky, I would definitely read, on Goodreads, the author has a content warning blurb, so I would definitely read that because I had a great time with this, but I do not think it's gonna be for everybody. So definitely read that little paragraph to see if it's gonna be your jam, because I don't know that it will be for everyone. Now that I'm thinking about the steamy things, I do feel like some of the dirty talk was really cringy. The dirty talk is very vulgar, which I find a little cringy because I'm like, do people really say this? I don't know. It was a little cringy. And what's his face's pet names for the main girl? I think he called her baby girl or doll or brat or all of them. Oh my God, it was every sentence he addressed her as baby girl. It was so overkill. Oh my God, I wanted to pull out my hair. Just I get it. You're obsessed with her. Stop calling her the same pet name. Either come up with more synonyms or just use her name. Or don't say anything. We know you're talking to her. It drove me a little crazy if you couldn't tell. If anyone ever calls me baby girl, might be a deal breaker. It might be. Leon and Ray, that's the character's name. Overall, I thought this was really fun. They had great chemistry. The steam factor was phenomenal. I can't get over how much fun I had. So I immediately jumped into the next book, and it was a bit of a letdown because, first of all, the first book, I was so engaged by the plot. I found the plot so compelling. And the second book, it hits the same beats, but from a different couple's perspective. So I wasn't quite as excited or curious about it. I kind of knew where everything was gonna go, and I didn't care quite as much about them. Now I will say, Zane, the demon guy in this second book, I was obsessed with. I thought he was so hot. I loved him, but oh my God, what's her name? Juniper bothered me a little bit. Sometimes it really bothers me when female protagonists are in their attempt to be so strong, they do stupid shit and they get themselves into dumb situations and dangerous situations where I'm just if you took 2 seconds to be thoughtful about how you want to respond, nobody with a brain would make that decision, but they're so stubborn or so one-sided or I can't think of the phrase, but you know what I'm talking about. It blinded her to really obvious dangers and threats, and I was just you're doing stupid things, and it was annoying. She felt a little one note. Yeah, I just didn't love her. So I will say this second book is still very steamy. They have good chemistry still, Zane and Juniper. And there's this one scene where they're at this hell on earth club that was really, really fun. So I thought both of these books were fun. I definitely preferred the first over the second, but I'll absolutely pick up the third book if and whenever it comes out. All right, last two. I read Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. I think this is her adult debut, ? I think that's right. The blurb, the Goodreads blurb at the top, is so accurate for this book. It says, A deeply atmospheric story about ancestral magic, an unresolved murder, and a second chance at true love. I think that's all you need to know going into this. It is definitely a very like moody forest, haunting kind of setting. It's a small town, and it's eerie doesn't feel like the right word, because at no point was I scared or creeped out or anything, but it just has kind of that, I don't know, vibe, I guess. And I will say, despite the plot being a little predictable, the writing, the character dynamics, the imagery, a lot of it had me really intrigued. So even though the book kind of went where I thought it was so well written, I think, that it kept me completely captivated, even though I kind of was like, oh yeah, I saw that coming. I mean, I feel like I listened to this book way past my bedtime on several nights, and it was totally worth it. The audiobook was great, by the way. So I think this is an excellent pick if you're looking for a short, magical-ish, mysterious-ish kind of read. I mean, it was really fun, and I think I'll definitely pick up more from Adrienne Young, whether it's YA or adult. I really enjoyed it. And the last book that I read, and I actually finished it yesterday, or this morning? Yesterday? I forget. Very, very recent memory, is The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. Sorry, I'm distracted. I read The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. This is my first Mariana Zapata book, and I drank the Kool-Aid. I'm like, do I need to drop my entire December TBR and read her entire backlist? I might. I don't know. I loved this. I thought it was so good. It was so much better than I was expecting. I went because I feel like it's pretty hyped or really popular. I went in feeling really skeptical. I really put it in because I was tired and I was having a hard time sleeping. So I was like, let me put on a romance that I don't care about, I don't have to pay attention to, kind of as white noise as I'm going to bed. And that was a mistake because I was hooked from the beginning. First of all, I love that this contemporary romance has a marriage of convenience. It was so fun. I feel like I only see that really in historicals, and so I loved seeing it in a more modern context. There was just so much forced proximity, and even though we're only in one POV, like we're just in, oh my God, what is her name? Is it Vanessa? Oh no, let me look it up. It was Vanessa, okay. Sorry, anyways. Even though we're only in her POV, Vanessa's, I still feel like you pick up on the mutual pining. It's delightful. And I know that this is a longer book, but this angsty slow burn is worth every page. It, to me, was perfectly paced. There was so much tension built up. God, it was good. I was so emotionally invested in their romance or their relationship. There were scenes where they were miscommunicating or not communicating clearly, and it like physically made me like heartsick, because I was just like, if we just said what we meant or spoke clearly or openly or honestly at all, like we could have been already together and living our happily ever after. I don't think they really have the miscommunication trope is here, but they certainly are really reluctant to share. It takes them a long time to kind of warm up to each other enough to share, their inner thinkings and past and feelings and all that stuff. God, it was good. I do think there are like two little things that I think I wish were different though, is I do kind of wish it was dual POV. Like there are some scenes where I desperately wanted to be in Aiden's head. I wanted to know what he was thinking, or like I wanted to feel his internal struggle, get a little more context on like why he's so reserved sometimes. But I mean, I guess you don't, because like it just leans more into the angst and the drama. And then my only other complaint is you only get one steamy scene. You have to wait hundreds and hundreds of pages for them to get together at the very, very end. And I could have used more. I could have used so much more because I was so invested and committed to their relationship. Like, I wish we got a little more steam or like a little more time with them. I don't know. I guess we spent so much time with them. I feel like I could be with these characters for forever. Maybe I wanted it to be even longer. Maybe I wanted the epilogue to be really like a novella where we just got more smutty scenes of them living their happily ever after. I loved it. I'm gonna read all of her stuff now. Which of her books do you think I should read next? I was sort of eyeing Culty, but I could be convinced to read something different. So let me know in the comments down below. All right, those are all 16 books that I read in the month of November. Like I said, I was really enjoying myself. I really binged a lot of stories, a lot of series, and had a grand old time. So definitely let me know some of your highlights from November of things that you did or read or watched or really anything. If you made it to the end, thank you. And I guess leave maybe a fall leaf emoji because we're still in fall. I feel like that's very autumnal. Yeah, as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. Whether you're new, welcome, or if you're returning week to week, I really appreciate it. I always feel like ending these videos is a little awkward, so we're just gonna end here. Bye.